Hello, dear sleepy listener. Tonight, let's leave the world behind. Let's leave the room, the floor beneath your feet, even the moon that watches over your dreams. Float with me into something wider, something older, a sky not made of hours and days, but of millions of glowing questions, stitched together by light. Above you, far beyond what any eye can see, there are hundreds of billions of galaxies, each one a city of stars, each one a swirl of stories, and each one, perhaps, remembers. Before you drift off to sleep, take a moment to like this video, leave a gentle comment about your favourite science moment, and subscribe to continue reading these bedtime stories. Let us know your location and time zone, so we know where this little light is reaching you from across the globe. Now, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let your curiosity drift among the stars. Out here, there is only the soft shimmer of distance. And in that distance, a question arises. Do galaxies remember each other? You let the question settle into your breath. You're not rushing toward an answer, you're floating in it. You drift beneath the arc of a spiral galaxy, its arms unfurling like ribbons tossed into slow motion. Stars whirl calmly in its disk, orbiting their centre with the grace of dancers who have never known haste. In the core, golden light pulses quietly older stars huddled together, wrapped in the warmth of their long shared lives. And yet, this is only one galaxy. You look around and find more, everywhere, some close, others like dim thoughts stretched across billions of light years. They are not scattered randomly. They are part of a rhythm, a network, the cosmic web, and in that web, galaxies come close. Sometimes so close, they change one another. You wonder when two galaxies brush past. Do they remember not in words, not in thoughts, but in structure, in scars? In the graceful distortions that remain long after the encounter has ended, you drift closer to a pair, twin spirals frozen in a slow, gravitational waltz. One reaches out a luminous arm toward the other, its stars stretched by tides not of water, but of invisible mass. The other responds. They do not collide with violence. They pass through each other like ghosts, no star hitting another, but each feeling the other's pull, and when they part, they are changed. You see it in the arcs of their arms, pulled too wide. You see it in their halos, stirred like fog. You see it in the trails of stars that follow, as if uncertain where they now belong. These are not random motions. These are memories. Memories made of gravity. Memories etched in light. Memories carried not in neurons, but in orbits. Some galaxies carry these echoes for billions of years, long after they've moved on, long after their companion is no longer visible. They still bear the mark, a ring, a warp, a stream of stars falling like tears. You begin to see that in space. Every motion leaves a trace, and in those traces, the past lives on. You drift through the space between two galaxies that once danced closely. The light between them is faint, but something catches your attention. A thin filament of stars, stretching like a bridge. A tidal tail, scientists call it. A thread spun from the gravitational fabric stretched between galaxies that once embraced. The stars in that bridge didn't just happen to be there. They were pulled gently, inevitably by forces that neither resisted nor rushed. Some of those stars now wander alone. They do not return to their original home. They are like memory itself, free-floating, luminous, without a place to settle, but forever connected to where they came from. You ask the question again, do galaxies remember? And you begin to feel an answer forming not with words, but with presence. Yes, they do. They remember in structure, in spin. In their luminous distortions, you drift through a warped galaxy now, one whose disk is twisted like a smile caught mid-sentence. This warp didn't arise on its own. It was stirred, long ago, by another galaxy that passed close, tugged at its stars, and moved on. But the memory remains. It always remains. The stars remember in motion. The dust remembers in how it scatters light. The black hole at the galaxy's centre remembers in mass, having grown larger after the last merger, fed by the dance of stars funneling inward, and you float quietly through it all, not just watching, but part of it, because even here, light remembers. Photons travel from these galaxies to your resting eyes, each one a message from a distant past. Some left their home 100 million years ago, some 1 billion, some before your planet had oceans or trees or names, and yet they arrive, whispering not only what the galaxies are, but what they've been. You pass now into deeper space, where light is older and galaxies are harder to see. Here, the distances feel ancient. The stars flicker more slowly. Everything stretches, and in that stillness, the question lingers again. What do galaxies hold on to, when all they've touched drifts farther and farther away? And perhaps the answer is this: they hold on to shape. They hold on to motion. They hold on to the quiet imprint of every meeting they've ever known. You, too, carry your past not just in memory, but in motion, in how you breathe, in how you rest, in how you dream. You were born of stardust atoms forged in other galaxies, perhaps long ago, before being swept into this one. Your blood remembers supernovae. Your bones remember ancient orbits. Your breath carries hydrogen from the dawn of time. So yes, galaxies remember, and so do you. You drift now beside 2 galaxies that have found each other in the vast ocean of space. Not quickly, not by chance, but as part of a quiet choreography that has taken billions of years to unfold. You watch from above, floating high over their delicate spirals, each one spinning in its own slow rhythm, like dancers circling across a cosmic floor. They are not colliding, not yet. They are circling, approaching, leaning into one another's gravity like partners meeting in a ballroom whose walls stretch light years wide. Their arms extend as if reaching for each other. Their stars still orbit their own centres, but their paths curve ever closer, and here, in the quiet space between them, you feel the anticipation of something beautiful, not explosive, not violent, but inevitable. This is how galaxies waltz. You hover near the larger of the 2, a grand spiral whose arms glisten with the light of billions of suns. Dust and gas swirl between its stars, raw material waiting to become future generations of brilliance. The core is warm, golden, old. It hums like an elder telling a story without words. The smaller galaxy is graceful too, a bit lopsided now, its shape gently distorted by the tug of its partner's pull. It hasn't touched yet, but already, it remembers. Already. It bends. You move between them, sensing how gravity wraps around you, not sharply, but gently, as if space itself is being stirred by the idea of nearness. And the stars, they respond. Not in panic, but in pattern. Their orbits stretch, their momentum shifts. Tides rise not from oceans, but from halos of dark matter brushing past each other like invisible silk. It is a dance written by mass and distance, a choreography performed in silence, a memory forming before the first touch. You realize something tender galaxies do not need to collide to know each other. They remember before contact. They respond before embrace. You float through one of the elongated arms of the larger spiral now. Here, new stars are being born. Gas clouds are compressed as tidal forces stir them, igniting bursts of creation. Baby stars shimmer in clusters, surrounded by the dust that birthed them. These stars are part of the memory too, because in the presence of another galaxy, everything changes, the structure, the motion, even the future. Encounters like this spark more than just movement, they spark birth. You drift outward again and watch from a distance. The galaxies circle closer, their outer arms begin to interlace. You imagine their paths a slow spiral inward, taking hundreds of millions of years. When they finally touch, they will pass through each other like ghosts. Most stars are too far apart to ever collide directly, and yet everything will change. You think of two dancers who move through the same room, barely brushing fingertips, but whose lives are never the same again. Some stars will be cast out into intergalactic space, free-floating, wandering. Others will fall inward, fueling the hunger of the black holes at each galaxy's heart. Gas will be stirred, new stars will ignite, dust will swirl in ways it never would have on its own. The galaxies will tangle, they will merge, they will become one. But even before that moment, they remember each other. You float now into the space that will one day be the heart of their merger. It is empty for now, quiet. But in your mind's eye, you see what's to come, an elliptical galaxy, vast and smooth, the product of two spirals slowly becoming one. You wonder what stories will be told in that future galaxy. Will stars remember they were once part of two? Will black holes remember the moment they met? Will clusters hold on to the shape of the spiral arms that once carried them? You look back at the present moment, the two galaxies still circling, still flirting with gravity. You see their future already etched into their orbits, like a script written in space-time itself. And you, drifting quietly between them, are part of that memory. You carry it in your awareness. You carry it in the atoms that once belonged to stars in galaxies long gone. This waltz, this slow motion, is not just something to witness. It's something you're made of. Every movement in the universe leaves something behind. A ripple, a trail, a change in rhythm. And even when galaxies part, or fade, or merge into something new, the dance remains. So tonight, as you float on the tides of this slow celestial motion, remember, not everything that touches leaves a scar. Sometimes it leaves a song, and sometimes that song lasts forever. You're drifting now through the invisible lacework that binds galaxies together, not with ropes or lines, but with gravity's gentle fingers. You do not see it, you cannot touch it, but you feel it everywhere. A quiet pull, stretched across the dark like a whisper that never stops speaking. Two galaxies may begin as strangers, distant, silent, shaped by their own histories, but given enough time, gravity finds them. And once it does, they begin to curve toward each other, not in haste, but in response. You float between two such galaxies now, far apart still, but already leaning, already listening. There is no sound, and yet Everything hums with motion. The distance between them is not closing quickly, not in any way you would notice, but over millions of years, the arc bends ever so slightly inward. This is how galaxies meet, not by accident, but by gravity's slow insistence. You pass through their outer halos, the spheres of dark matter that surround all galaxies, invisible yet immense. These halos are vast, like the atmosphere of an idea. When galaxies draw near, their halos touch first, long before the stars do, and in that meeting something begins, not contact, not collision, but conversation. They feel each other. They pull and are pulled. The stars at their fringes begin to move differently. Trajectories bend. Orbits shift. Space becomes a negotiation. You imagine two dancers reaching out their arms across a silent room. They have not yet touched, but their eyes meet. Their steps adjust. They begin to circle. Galaxies are the same. You glide now through the dark space between them, an expanse filled with very little, and yet filled with meaning. It is not emptiness. It is potential. The space where a memory begins. Already, one galaxy begins to show signs of the other's presence. Its disk tilts slightly. A few stars wobble in their path. A trail of gas is stretched out behind it like a ribbon caught in the wind. These are the first signs of remembrance. The galaxies still orbit their centres, still shine with their own light, but they are no longer alone in their motion. They are being watched, pulled, affected, changed. And that, perhaps, is how memory begins, not in the moment of meeting, but in the quiet anticipation of it. You pass near a star cluster caught between the two galaxies. It once belonged to one, but now drifts freely, no longer tethered to either centre, yet still held by the gravity of both. It floats through the in-between, like a thought no longer attached to a speaker, but still echoing. You wonder how many other stars have become drifters, stripped away not by force but by persuasion. They do not resist. They follow the curve of gravity's invitation, and in doing so, they carry memory with them, not in minds, but in motion, not in stories, but in spirals, because every gravitational tug leaves a mark, and every change in path is a kind of memory. Even black holes remember. At the heart of each galaxy, a supermassive black hole sits silently immense, dense, patient. It does not move unless it must. But when galaxies come close, the black holes begin to feel each other, too. They orbit, they spiral. One day, they may even merge. And when they do, they will shake the fabric of space-time itself, sending out ripples, gravitational waves that echo across the cosmos. Like a bell rung by the memory of collision, you drift near one such black hole now. It is quiet, sleeping, perhaps. But nearby stars move differently than they once did. They carry the memory of a galaxy that passed close, long ago. The stars swirl in shapes that wouldn't have formed alone. The gas clouds are twisted. The arms of the galaxy are stretched like taffy. These are not scars. They are records. You look out again at the two galaxies, still drawing closer, still circling. You cannot rush their meeting, but you already see the connection taking shape, and you realize something profound. Gravity is not just a force. It is a form of memory. It links what was once separate. It curves paths. It folds time. It shapes the future by reshaping the present. You are part of it too. Your body, your thoughts, your rest all unfold in a gravity field. The earth pulls you gently downward. The moon pulls at the oceans, the sun holds the planets in orbit, and even your galaxy, the Milky Way, holds your solar system in its arms as it spins. You have never escaped gravity, and you never will, but you don't need to, because gravity is not confinement, it is connection, it is attention paid over long distances. It is motion that remembers what it has touched. So you drift now in the stillness between galaxies not lost, but held, not alone, but moving in rhythm with the deep memory of the cosmos. You pass between two strangers who are becoming companions, not quickly, not loudly, but beautifully, and someday, long after they merge, long after their stars have rearranged and their centres have joined, long after even their shapes have changed, some part of them will still carry the memory of this moment, the first pull, the first curve, the first slow, invisible promise. You drift now into a moment that has been building for billions of years. The galaxies you watched dancing and circling have drawn close enough to touch not suddenly, not violently, but with a patience that only the cosmos can keep. They're not dancers now, they're painters, and the sky is their canvas. This is a collision, but not the kind you might imagine. Stars do not smash together in fire. Planets do not burst like fireworks. Instead, galaxies pass through each other like mist through mist, like two flocks of birds merging in a slow, silent blur. The space between stars is so vast that most never collide. They drift past, untouched, yet transformed. Because even without contact, everything changes. You float through the overlap now, two spirals interwoven, their arms tangled like ribbons in wind. Trails of gas curl through the dark like brushstrokes. Star clusters are flung outward, riding on the momentum of a gravity that no longer knows which centre to orbit. You're in the middle of the canvas now, and the painting is in motion. The collision sends waves through both galaxies, density waves, tidal forces, like stones dropped in a still pond, but drawn in loops instead of circles. Gas clouds collapse under the pressure, and where they collapse, they ignite. New stars are born millions at once. This is called a starburst, a sudden flowering of light, triggered not by peace, but by encounter. You drift beside one of these newborn stars. It glows hot and blue, cradled in the arms of the cloud that made it. Around it, others sparkle sisters and brothers, born in the same rush of creation. These stars will live fast, burn bright. Some may die in supernovae long before the galaxies finish merging, but for now, they shine. They are the signature of this meeting. The galaxies may forget their original shapes, but these stars will remain a luminous record of the moment when two great cities of light became one. You move now toward the centre, where something deeper unfolds. The cores of the galaxies approach each other slowly, like two monarchs stepping through a quiet hall. Each one carries its own supermassive black hole, a body of gravity so strong that not even light escapes. They circle each other warily, spiraling closer, drawing in gas, feeding. Eventually, they will merge, and when they do, they will send out gravitational waves ripples in space-time itself, not loud, not visible, but real. Like the echo of a silent footstep through the fabric of everything. You are watching a transformation. These two galaxies, once distinct, will become something new. A single, larger galaxy. Likely an elliptical one, its spiral arms dissolved, its discs stretched and smoothed. It will have a new shape, a new spin, a new history. But if you know where to look, the memory of the collision will remain. In the stars flung into long loops, in the tails of gas arcing like comets, in the shell-like structures that ripple outward from the core, like tree rings made of stars. You float through one of those shells now, a faint, curved arc of older stars, quiet, reddish, patient. They trace the memory of impact, a record not written in ink, but in orbits. Galaxies may not have minds, but they remember in shape, in symmetry, in movement. And every merger leaves a fingerprint. You think now of our own galaxy, quiet for now, but not untouched. The Milky Way carries scars too. Streams of stars pulled from smaller galaxies we have long since consumed. Wrinkles in our disk, a warp in our spiral arms. Reminders that we, too, are shaped by encounters, and ahead of us, a future waiting quietly. You glance toward the horizon of the universe and see Andromeda, our nearest large neighbour, gliding toward us over a distance so vast that it takes light 2 million years to cross. In 4 billion years, we will meet, we will merge, we will paint the sky, too. And even though neither galaxy will likely notice in real time, even though life, if it survives, may no longer live on Earth, by then the memory will be written into the stars. Long after the galaxies merge, the new galaxy that forms Milkomeda, some call it, will carry the mark, not a wound, not a break, a blending, a story that continues. You drift gently now toward the outer edge of this current collision. Stars here move in strange paths. They wobble, they arc. Some fall inward, some are flung outward forever. They are like thoughts after a deep conversation no longer settled, no longer alone. And just like that, you realize what this is. This isn't just a collision, it's a meeting. And galaxies, like people, change after meeting. They do not forget. You float now through the aftermath of encounter, not where galaxies crash, but where they remember. Everything around you moves, but not in straight lines. The stars curve, the gas drifts, the orbits shimmer with distortion. This is not chaos, it is memory, wearing the shape of motion. You drift beside a stream of stars, a long, delicate ribbon arcing out from a galaxy's edge. At first glance, it seems like a spiral arm, but you look more closely and see that it is not connected to the core. It stretches farther than an arm should, looping into the dark like a whisper pulled too far. This is a tidal stream, and it tells a story. Long ago, a smaller galaxy passed nearby too close to resist, too light to prevail. It brushed past the larger one, and in doing so, it lost pieces of itself. Stars were drawn away, tugged by tidal forces that tore them loose. They did not scream, they did not struggle. They simply drifted outward, carried by the gentle insistence of gravity. And now they drift still, long after the smaller galaxy has vanished from view. They orbit the larger one now, but not as captives, more like ghosts. They carry with them the shape of the path they took, a memory not written in light or sound, but in trajectory. You drift into that stream. The stars around you are quiet, old and calm. They do not blink or burn fiercely. They shine like patient thoughts, wandering slowly through a future shaped by a past they will never return to. They do not need to. They are the evidence of it. You look back and see other trails curved, arcing lines of starlight faintly stretched across the black, each one a scar, or perhaps a brushstroke. Scientists map these tidal streams in our own galaxy, 2 ribbons left behind by dwarf galaxies the Milky Way once embraced or consumed. We didn't notice at the time. These meetings took place before Earth had life, before the sun was born, and yet the memory lingers. Every trail is a line of starlight saying something passed this way. Something was here. You drift closer to the disk of the larger galaxy now. You can feel that it's tilted slightly, warped at the edges like a vinyl record softened by time. This, too, is a kind of memory. The warp isn't random, it's a response. Long ago, another galaxy passed nearby, maybe only once, but its gravity stirred the disk, set it wobbling, left behind a motion that has never quite gone still. Galaxies do not return to perfect symmetry. They do not reset. They carry what happened. They carry it in spin, in shape, in the motion of their stars. And you feel it too. Your own body moves through space around the Earth, around the sun, through the galaxy. But your inner motions tell stories too. Your heartbeat remembers the rhythm of a mother's womb. Your breath remembers the moment it began. Your muscles, your bones, your cells. They carry patterns shaped by everything that has ever touched you. You are memory, made of motion. You float now toward the center of the galaxy, where the stars move faster. The orbits here are tight, warped. Some stars follow paths shaped by the weight of others that are long gone. A passing galaxy, a burst of star formation, a flare from the central black hole, each of these left an impression. And even though they may no longer burn, the orbits still remember. You drift higher now, far above the galaxy, and look down upon it as a whole. You see the slow rotation of the stars, the warps, the bends, the tails, the trails, each piece moving, not randomly, not aimlessly, but because of something, some meeting, some passing, some long ago touch that changed the direction of motion forever. And in that motion, you see remembrance. Not the kind that requires a brain or a language, but the kind that lives in inertia, in trajectory, in shape. Some scientists wonder how many galaxies are we watching in stillness, not realizing that they are still recovering from a dance we cannot see. How many carry hidden ripples, invisible scars? The stars may have forgotten the moment, but their motion has not. You drift now, gently, toward a smaller galaxy on the edge of the larger one's halo. It is faint, fragile. A satellite galaxy, still bound by gravity, still circling slowly. Over time, it will likely be stripped of stars, drawn inward, merged. But even now, it is changing the galaxy it orbits. Not dramatically, but enough. A ripple here, a curve there, and after the merger, the stars will swirl together, and their paths will settle into a new harmony, one shaped by what came before. You pause, you listen. There is no sound here, only motion, only memory. And as you breathe in that stillness, you feel the truth settle in galaxies remember through movement, not just by what they keep, but by what they let go, by how they bend, by how they orbit, by how they drift, just slightly, in a new direction. And you remember too, not just in mind, but in body, in how your hands move, in how your thoughts circle old stars, in how your sleep is a slow spiral back toward stillness. So float now, let the stars pass gently, let the trails curve around you, and know nothing truly passes without leaving something behind. Not even a stranger, not even a galaxy. You drift now through a universe where time does not march. It flows, slowly, softly, not like a clock ticking, but like silk unravelling in warm water. The galaxies around you continue their long, delicate ballet, merging, passing, stretching, and you begin to realise something gentle and vast. Time here does not rush, it sways. You float above a pair of galaxies still in orbit, still circling each other. You've seen their waltz before, watched them draw closer. But now you notice the scale of their rhythm. One orbit might take 1 billion years. One pass may last longer than all of human history, and yet, from the galaxy's perspective, it is only a moment. You pass through the halo of the larger galaxy again, and this time you feel how the stars have spread out, how some have been flung wide, riding the momentum of an ancient encounter. You follow one such star. It's alone, travelling through intergalactic space. It does not burn brightly. It does not need to. It carries its own stillness. You realise this star has been on this journey for billions of years, longer than your planet has existed. Its path was shaped by the slow gravity of a meeting no one remembers anymore, except the star, except you. You drift with it for a while, and in doing so, you feel time soften. You begin to sense how moments stretch out in the cosmos. You're not rushing from past to future. You're floating in a present that is wider than you ever imagined. Time is not made of seconds out here. It is made of orbits, of spirals, of curving paths that never quite return to where they began. You pass now through a tidal loop, a long strand of stars pulled into a slow arc by 2 merging galaxies. The loop circles gently, glimmering like a ribbon caught in moonlight. It will take hundreds of millions of years to complete even half a revolution. But it is not in a hurry. Its shape is memory. Its motion is time. Its presence is enough. And you begin to wonder if galaxies remember through motion. Then is time itself a form of memory? Is it the universe remembering what just happened? By continuing the rhythm, perhaps? You float now through the deep halo of a galaxy that has already merged. Long ago, its core is calm, elliptical. The wild spirals have smoothed into something round, something quiet, but all around it, in the halo, are stars moving in strange paths, some fast, some slow, some looping awkwardly. They do not belong here. Not originally. They are relics of galaxies once consumed. Their orbits are off-centre. Their velocity doesn't match the stars born in this galaxy. They are reminders. They are clocks. They are scars that still circle. And though the galaxy no longer shows signs of the merger in its heart, the outer stars tell the story. You only need to know how to look. Time has not erased the memory. Time is the memory. You drift downward again, into a faint trail of gas, the leftover wake of a passing galaxy. It glows faintly in the far infrared, cold but not gone. It won't disappear for billions of years. It will continue to fade, to stretch, to drift. And somewhere in its movement is the imprint of what happened. A galaxy came near. A cloud was pulled. A thread was drawn into space. You realise now that the galaxy doesn't need to actively recall what happened. Its very shape does the remembering. You glance outward toward the larger scale, the cosmic web. Filaments of galaxies stretch across the universe, slowly moving apart as space expands. The structure looks frozen, like it hasn't changed in ages. But if you wait long enough, longer than lifetimes, longer than stars, you'd see that everything is still moving, still remembering, still becoming. You float into a quiet moment now. No bright galaxies, no starbursts, just darkness, distance, and the faint pull of gravity's touch. You wonder, gently, how many meetings have been missed simply because the galaxies were moving too slowly for us to see. How many memories are too vast for a human lifetime to notice, and yet they're there. Not in text, not in sound, but in motion. You think of your own time, how fast it feels, how brief. But here, time is soft, unhurried. You do not need to mark it with clocks or calendars. You mark it with curves, with echoes, with stars that remember. Galaxies do not hurry to change. They unfold. They drift. They transform like stones softened by rivers. And you are part of this unfolding. Your life is brief on the cosmic scale, yes, but your atoms are old. Your molecules have drifted through stars. Your water has known silence older than light. You're not outside of galactic time. You're one of its notes, a ripple in its song. So breathe deeply now. Let time move like silk. Let the memories of stars drift through you. And know this, nothing in the universe forgets quickly. It remembers slowly, gracefully, in motion too wide to see all at once, but it remembers, and so do you. You drift now not among stars, but between them in a space quieter than light, where the softest materials of the universe live dust, gas, and silence. This is the interstellar medium, the breath between galactic words, the whisper that lingers after galaxies speak. Here, there is no urgency, only the slow drift of particles too small to see, too old to name, and too important to ignore. This dust is not the kind you find on a forgotten shelf. These are ancient grains, carbon, silicates, even metals born in the outbreath of stars, scattered by supernovae, gathered in clouds. You drift through it gently, like falling through the folds of a velvet curtain. It doesn't block your way, it caresses your presence. And here, in this delicate dust, lies a different kind of memory. Not the bright memory of motion or the dramatic trace of collision, but a quieter kind, a subtle record of what galaxies have done with their light. You pass through a filament of dust stretched across a galaxy's disk. It weaves between stars, obscuring some, shading others. You know, now, that dust is more than decoration. It is the material of future stars, the scaffold of planets, the cradle of chemistry. But dust does more than build. It remembers where things have been. The patterns of dust in a galaxy, its lanes, its filaments, its glowing clouds are shaped by the movements of stars and gas stirred by past encounters. A nearby galaxy's gravity may have twisted the disk, and the dust, ever sensitive, followed. You look around. You see long, dark streaks like rivers cutting across light. These are dust lanes, tracing the paths of spiral arms, outlining the structure of galaxies like the grain in ancient wood. And sometimes they don't quite line up. Sometimes they bend or ripple, as if reacting to something that passed long ago. Dust is easily moved, easily disturbed. It responds to gravity, to shock waves, to the breeze of radiation. It bends when stars are born nearby. It scatters when galaxies merge. In this way, dust carries memory, soft, hidden memory. You drift through a nebula, now a rich cloud of gas and dust glowing in soft reds and blues. It swirls slowly, barely changing over millennia. But if you look closely, you see that it is shaped by a past encounter. The gas was stirred by a shock wave. the dust compressed into knots where stars are now forming. You pass a star just being born, still wrapped in a cocoon of warm dust. Its light is faint, diffused, but it grows, slowly, patiently, and around it, a disk of dust spins a nursery of future planets. Someday, a world may form here, maybe many, all from dust, all from memory. You float farther now, beyond the glowing regions, into a patch of cold dust drifting between galaxies. This is intergalactic dust sparser, lonelier, but no less meaningful. Scientists have found it even in the vast stretches between galaxies, likely flung out by encounters, stripped from galaxies in their meetings. Even dust remembers where it came from. It carries the fingerprints of collisions. It holds on to temperature. It bears the imprint of radiation from the stars it passed. Some dust may never return to a galaxy. It will drift forever, a slow, silent witness to the motion of everything. But even drifting, it remains part of the whole. Nothing in the universe is truly alone. You let the dust pass through you. It doesn't ask anything. It doesn't explain itself. But you feel its story. It tells you of stars that lived and died, of galaxies that brushed past one another, of gravity that stirred clouds into spirals, of light that tried to escape, but was scattered, diffused into red, then infrared, then warmth. This is how dust speaks, not in sound, but in delay, in dimming, in colouring the light that travels through it. You begin to see that dust is not a veil, but a lens. Through it, you can read the history of galaxies, how their stars moved, how their disks twisted, how their collisions spread trails of tiny, floating witnesses. And some scientists still wonder how much dust have we not yet seen, how many stories are hidden in the shadows, veiling the earliest galaxies. Is there a kind of memory written in the coldest corners of the cosmos, one we've only just begun to feel? You float now through one such region, quiet, distant, faintly glowing in far infrared light. No stars pierce this cloud, but inside it, molecules form, complex ones, organic ones, maybe the first hints of life, or at least of its ingredients. And all from dust, not forgotten dust, but remembering dust. It remembers the stars that gave it birth. It remembers the galaxies that scattered it. It remembers the motions that brought it here. And now, drifting through it, you remember too. So as you close your eyes, feel this dust as something tender, something older than light, something soft enough to move with gravity, but strong enough to carry the shape of time. You are part of it, and it somehow is part of you. You drift now in the company of light, not the bright, immediate kind, the kind that glints off your fingertips or spills across morning windows, but the old kind, the kind that left its home long before your planet was born, the kind that travels not just through space, but through time. This light has been moving for billions of years. It is slow only in story, not in speed. Light never lingers. It races, and yet, when it arrives, it carries softness, wisdom, secrets. You pass through one such beam now, a thread of starlight from a galaxy whose face you'll never truly see, not as it is, only as it was. You are not seeing the galaxy, you're seeing its memory, the light it offered up when it was young, or merging, or changing. You realize then that light is memory in motion, You drift through a field of photons, now light particles travelling through the dark without ever stopping, never tiring, never questioning. Some came from stars, some from collisions, some from glowing gas compressed between galaxies by invisible tides. All of it is history, travelling toward your awareness. Scientists call this ancient light the cosmic record. They gather it with telescopes, stretch it into spectra, pull it apart into threads that tell stories of movement, of heat, of elements forged in fire. You float beside one of these telescopes now, orbiting high above a planet's blue edge. Its mirror glistens with the faint light of a galaxy 13 billion years away. The telescope doesn't see shape, not at first. It sees the signature of light bent, reddened, softened by the expansion of space. This is redshift. Light stretches as the universe expands. The farther it travels, the more it leans into red, into warmth, into age. The galaxies you see are not fleeing. The light is just getting tired, and in that tiredness, it speaks. You follow one ray backward, travelling in reverse now, tracing its path home. It passes through dust, softening and scattering. It slips around stars, through halos, through cold clouds of hydrogen, and then, there it is, a galaxy, long ago, merging with another. You see the tidal tails, the gas compressed, the new stars flaring into life. You are watching not the moment itself, but its light, just now arriving. That light is the memory. The galaxy may have moved on. It may have calmed, changed, disappeared, but the light it sent is still arriving. Somewhere, right now. A photon from that encounter is brushing the mirror of a telescope, and someone is watching, not the present, but the past. You drift through the beam again and feel its warmth, not in heat, but in presence, in weightless knowing. It has carried itself across an ocean of time to deliver a message. This happened. This is real. This still matters. You think now of other kinds of light, X-rays from hot gas trapped between galaxies, infrared from stars wrapped in dust, ultraviolet from newborn suns erupting into being, each one a language, each one a layer of memory. Some scientists map the light not just by brightness, but by shape. They see arcs, gravitational lenses, bent by massive galaxies that act like cosmic magnifying glasses. A beam of light curves around a galaxy cluster, and what lies behind it is revealed, amplified, remembered. Even gravity helps light remember. You float past one such lens now. It distorts the background like ripples in glass. A distant galaxy, too faint to see on its own, becomes visible because of the curve of space-time itself. It's like reading a story through a warped window and still understanding every word. You wonder now, how many stories is the universe still telling us, one photon at a time? How many forgotten collisions are still arriving? How many gentle mergers still glow, unseen, in the sky? How many galaxies, now silent, are still whispering through their light? You drift into the path of an older beam. This one is faint, cold, from a galaxy near the edge of the observable universe, a place so far that the light is barely more than a breath. And yet, it is here. It made it. You smile not because you know the galaxy, but because you know the feeling of sending something into the dark, hoping someone will find it. Light is like that. It carries messages not meant for anyone in particular, but meant nonetheless. You are floating in those messages now, wrapped in light older than memory. You're not just watching the universe, you're reading it, and it is telling you gently, in soft wavelengths, in faded colour, in waves that stretch across the cold I remember. And you believe it. You drift now toward a galaxy that seems, at first glance, quiet. No long tails, no blazing bursts. Its shape is smooth, almost serene in elliptical form, round and calm, like a thought resting at the edge of sleep. But as you move closer, you begin to notice the echoes, faint curves, dim shells, gentle ripples of starlight, layered like the rings of a pond that once held a pebble. These are not mistakes, they are memories. This is a shell galaxy, a kind of galaxy that has merged long ago with smaller companions. It doesn't wear its history like a spiral does, with bold arms or dramatic twists. Its past is subtler, softer, folded into layers you must learn how to read. You pass through one of the shells, now a ripple of stars wrapped around the galaxy's centre. The stars here are slightly different. Their motion doesn't quite match the core. They drift in long elliptical orbits, like dancers entering a room mid-song, still moving to a different beat. They came from somewhere else. Long ago, a smaller galaxy passed too close, was pulled in, was slowly absorbed. The stars of that galaxy didn't disappear. They merged, melted, and began to orbit in patterns the host galaxy could not forget. These ripples are the result, not random, not erased, just quieter now. You hover above the galaxy and watch its light blur into halos. The shells repeat, faintly concentric waves of memory, still circling after billions of years. It is not a violent story, it is a gentle one, a story told in shape, not sound, in patience, not urgency. Scientists once thought galaxies like this were simple, featureless, even. But when they looked more carefully, with longer exposure and more sensitive instruments, the shells appeared. Whispered stories revealed themselves in faint arcs, like old handwriting reappearing beneath fresh paint. Even galaxies with no spiral arms. Remember? You drift to another shell galaxy now, one with more structure loops that almost seem to spiral, but then peel away into arcs. This galaxy merged with more than one companion. Its past is layered, each shell a different tone in the same melody. The timing of the ripples tells scientists how recently the mergers happened. Some within a few 100 million years, some far older, and you, floating now through one of these outer rings, begin to feel how memory radiates outward. Galaxies do not just remember in the centre, they remember in the outskirts. They remember in the way distant stars still carry the motion of something long gone. You pause beside a lone star, drifting at the far edge of the system. It once belonged to another galaxy, a smaller one. Now, it orbits here, quietly, faithfully, but still with a slightly different rhythm. It is a visitor who stayed, a stranger who's been folded into the family. You wonder how many stars in every galaxy come from elsewhere. How many are not native, but adopted. And then you realize maybe all galaxies are mosaics, patches of history layered together not perfectly, but beautifully. Even the Milky Way carries these ghost companions. Streams of stars like the Sagittarius stream curl around our galaxy, evidence of smaller galaxies swallowed by our own. We did not watch it happen, but the stars are still circling, still telling the story. You drift through one such stream now. It feels like a ribbon unwinding through space. The stars here are older, cooler. They hum with quiet memory. Some of them may host planets. Some of those planets may look up at the sky at the new galaxy that adopted them and not know they came from somewhere else. But the stars remember, their motion remembers, and the sky remembers too. You float higher again, above the shell galaxy, and look back at its gentle curves. They're not dramatic, not chaotic, but they are clear. A galaxy passed here. It did not leave loudly, but it left meaning. You let that echo settle into your thoughts, because memory doesn't always shout. Sometimes it settles into orbits. Sometimes it wraps itself around the core. Sometimes it becomes a part of the whole, subtle but lasting. You are made of such echoes too. Your thoughts are ripples of old stories. Your body carries atoms from stars that lived and died before this galaxy formed. You do not always remember what shaped you, but something does. Something in your rhythm, something in your stillness, something in how you hold the quiet. You're not just floating among the galaxies. You're floating among their ghosts, their companions, their memories. And even the softest ripple means something, especially the softest ones. You drift now toward a place that feels familiar, not because you've seen it from the outside, but because you live deep within it, the Milky Way, your home galaxy. A spiral so vast that it takes light 100,000 years to cross its glowing disk, and yet it turns in silence, like a wheel on a soft breeze. From out here, its arms coil delicately around a golden core, shimmering with the lives of hundreds of billions of stars. But if you look closely, if you listen with motion instead of ears, you'll sense it. This galaxy remembers. You pass above the galactic plane, through the halo that surrounds the Milky Way like a faint breath. And there, gliding across this dark halo, are streams of stars, long, curved, quiet. They do not match the spin of the disk. They are not native. These are remnants, pieces of smaller galaxies, long since pulled apart, their stars stretched into rivers by the Milky Way's embrace. You enter one now, perhaps the most well-known, the Sagittarius stream. It curls around the galaxy like a ribbon of memory. The stars here once belonged to a dwarf galaxy called Sagittarius, which has been slowly merging with the Milky Way for billions of years. Not in a single moment, not in fire, but in patient, gravitational unfolding. The Milky Way has been absorbing companions like Sagittarius for a long, long time. And every encounter leaves behind trails. You pass through a globular cluster now tightly packed, ancient stars held together like a fistful of light. Some of these clusters arrived from other galaxies, brought in through mergers. Their paths, their chemistry, their movement, each is a signature of origin. Some are born here, some are immigrants, but all of them orbit the same heart now, and that heart it remembers, too. You drift inward, toward the bulge at the centre of the Milky Way. The stars here are old, packed closely together, humming like the last embers of a quiet fire. There are waves of motion here, streams and counter-streams, stars moving in different directions, shaped by past gravitational events. Some stars move upward, perpendicular to the disk, others tilt, others sink and rise, like boats in a sea stirred long ago. These are the ripples left behind by mergers. The core of the Milky Way does not forget. Even the dark matter remembers, invisible though it is. Scientists believe that the Milky Way's dark matter halo has been shaped by countless small collisions, each one adding mass, changing the structure, thickening the disk, warping the outer edges. You drift along the edge of that halo now. Sparse stars pass like lanterns in the dark. Many of them are stars that were captured former residents of galaxies that came too close. They orbit with long, slow arcs, their paths like stitches in a cosmic quilt. Some scientists call this process galactic cannibalism, but that word is too sharp for something so graceful. This is not destruction. It is transformation, inclusion, memory through motion. You float now just above the plane of the Milky Way, watching it spin. You see the warp in its outer disk not flat but gently curved, like a bowl bent at the edge. That warp is a message too. It tells us something tugged here. Something nudged us. Perhaps it was a dark matter halo from a passing dwarf galaxy, or the gravitational handshake of one of our many ancient companions. We cannot know for certain, but we know it happened, because the stars remember. Even the sun, your sun, moves in a rhythm shaped by these events. It orbits the galactic centre every 225 million years, riding on a path sculpted by everything the Milky Way has ever met. You are a passenger in that memory, and as you drift now through the galactic outskirts, you see more evidence. A ring of stars, a cluster moving in the wrong direction, streams that cross the disk like quiet brushstrokes. They are all signs of what came before. Somewhere in the near future, cosmically speaking, another encounter waits. The Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy are on a slow, inevitable path toward one another. In 4 billion years, they will meet. The stars will swirl. The disks will tangle. The black holes at their centres will spiral inward, and a new galaxy will be born. But the Milky Way's history won't be erased. It will be folded into that future galaxy structure. It will ripple through its halo. It will drift through its streams. It will echo in its shells. You realize now that galaxies are like minds. They do not hold memories the way humans do, but they are shaped by everything they have encountered. Every orbit, every pull, every quiet meeting leaves a trace, and those traces are enough. You float, finally, above your home galaxy far enough now to see it as a whole. It spins, slowly, patiently. Its arms glitter with ongoing life. And in its halo, its core, its disk, you see the story. This galaxy has known company, and it has never truly been alone. You drift now between two giants. Behind you, the Milky Way turns with gentle certainty. Ahead of you, a mirror in the dark Andromeda. Another spiral galaxy, majestic and slow, approaching across the great black sea of intergalactic space. It feels far, and it is. Over 2 million light years of distance lie between these two galaxies, more than you can comprehend, more than light can cross in a human lifetime. And yet, Andromeda is moving toward us, not away, not drifting with the expansion of space like most galaxies. She is falling in. You glide through this space between, not empty, but filled with the breath of time. Faint gas, dust, invisible halos of dark matter stretching far beyond what the eye can see. And somewhere in this silence, the two galaxies already feel each other, not through touch, through gravity, that quiet pull. That shared conversation, that slow lean toward reunion, because this is not the first time galaxies have danced. Andromeda and the Milky Way are on a path shaped by ancient tides, an orbit not around a common centre, but through one. For billions of years, they've circled gently, tugging, responding, preparing. You watch now as their outer halos begin to interlace. These halos, made mostly of dark matter, extend far beyond the bright stars you see through telescopes. They have already begun to touch. They sway like invisible oceans meeting at the horizon. And though no stars have collided yet, the memory has begun. Each galaxy already feels the other. You pass into Andromeda now, drifting among its stars. It is both like and unlike the Milky Way. Spiral arms, a golden core, a dark dust lane curling through its disk. But here, too, there are clues of past meetings. Andromeda has merged before, more than once. Her disk is scarred in places. Streams of stars loop around her, remnants of smaller galaxies long since swallowed. Just like the Milky Way, she remembers, and she carries that memory in her motion. Now, she comes toward us, slowly, so slowly that it will take 4 billion years before the true encounter begins. But in cosmic time, that's a blink. You feel it already in the narrowing space, in the shift of trajectories, in the way the future is quietly curving toward embrace. When they meet, it will not be an explosion. It will be a folding, a gathering. 2 spirals spinning into one, their arms entangling like waves drawn into the same tide. Stars will be flung outward, gas will ignite, new stars will form in great bursts. The black holes at each galaxy's heart will spiral together and eventually merge, sending out waves that ripple across the fabric of space. But all of that is still ahead. For now, the galaxies simply lean in. You float between them, not as a traveller of space, but as a listener of time. You feel the approach like breath drawn in slowly, like 2 voices humming in harmony before the first note is sung. Scientists have modelled this future. They've watched it play out in simulations, 2 disks spiralling in, overlapping, passing through, merging over billions of years. By the end, a new galaxy is formed, likely an elliptical one, larger, rounder, slower to form stars, but filled with the memory of 2 that came before. They call it Milkomeda, a name that blends what once was. But you can call it whatever you like, because it will be yours, just as the Milky Way is now. You drift through the future for a moment. You see stars moving in new orbits, some thrown into vast loops, others nestled in quiet clusters. The sun, if it still exists, will have changed its sky entirely. The constellations will dissolve, the familiar shapes will vanish, but the stars will still shine. Andromeda will no longer be approaching, she will be part of us. You begin to understand now galaxies don't forget those they merge with. They cannot. The merging changes everything: shape, motion, light, silence. And once they've met, they carry each other forever, like voices blended in song, like rivers joined into one, like stories that continue long after the characters have changed. You turn and look back at both galaxies, still separate, still distinct, but already you feel the promise, you feel the gravity, you feel the memory forming before the moment arrives, and that too is a kind of love, a slow, ancient, tidal love, shaped not by words, but by waiting, by leaning, by motion. So you drift on, in the hush between what was and what will be, and somewhere in that quiet, the Milky Way and Andromeda remember each other, even now. You drift now through a moment that feels inevitable, as if all space has been holding its breath, and now, finally, releases. The Milky Way and Andromeda are no longer distant dancers. They're beginning to merge. But this is not chaos. This is not destruction. It is softness. It is surrender. Galaxies do not collide like crashing waves, they blend like clouds. They're stars, spaced far apart, pass through one another almost entirely untouched. What touches is gravity. What changes is motion. You hover in the heart of this union, where stars weave new patterns, their orbits reshaped by a mass that has doubled in depth. The course of both galaxies approach, like two lights seen through rain, slowly smearing into one. The spiral arms are not arms anymore. They twist, unravel, stretch. The graceful discs begin to dissolve, leaving behind shells and curves and long, luminous plumes of stars. Trails like calligraphy spill outward. What was once neat is now expressive, and yet it's still a kind of order, a new one. You drift through one of these star streams, glowing faintly across space like the sleeve of a robe caught in wind. Each star here is a traveller, displaced from its orbit, no longer circling its original core, but now part of something larger, something still forming. Some stars are thrown into high loops, arching around the merging galaxy's growing centre. Others fall inward, pulled by the deepening gravity, swirling closer to the twin black holes now spiralling toward each other. You pass near those black holes now once separate, each the massive heart of a galaxy. They now orbit one another. The space around them is stretched, trembling with potential. As they draw closer, they will release gravitational waves, ripples in the very fabric of space-time. You do not hear them, but you feel them, like a shiver, like a silent bell, like the universe breathing in. Eventually, they will merge two voids folding into one. The collision will last only moments, but its echo will ripple for eons, and in their place, a new centre will form, a new core, heavier, deeper, quietly more complete. Around this heart, the stars begin to settle. You float among them, watching orbits shift into harmony. At first, everything is chaotic stars on tangled paths, gas clouds crashing into one another, shock waves creating flashes of star formation. But over time, the movement smooths, the randomness softens. A new galaxy begins to take shape. It won't be a spiral. The elegant discs have given way to a rounder, more diffuse form, an elliptical galaxy larger, softer, its light spread more evenly across the sky. The motion here is slower, less like rotation, more like expansion. A kind of calm has descended. You drift high above the new galaxy now, looking down on what was once two. You see no borders, no dividing lines. The merger is complete, but the memory is not gone. If you know how to look, you can still see the past, in the shells, in the arcs, in the stars moving just a little too fast or too far from the centre. The memory of motion is preserved, not loudly, not obviously, but gently. And within this new galaxy, stars continue to be born. Not as many as before, there is less cold gas now, less raw material, but still, in quiet pockets, new suns ignite. Around them, planets form, and on those planets, maybe, someday, a being looks up and sees a sky not of two galaxies, but one. You imagine them wondering what came before, and the answer will be here, in the structure, in the trails, in the motion of their own star. Perhaps once from Andromeda, now circling in this new home, you drift downward through the glowing stars of this blended galaxy, and you feel something that is not sadness and not nostalgia. It is something deeper, a kind of grace, because the galaxies did not resist one another. They did not fight. They folded, they shared, they changed, and what emerged is not less. It is more. You pass near a faint cluster, a group of stars that formed during the merger, born from the compression of gas clouds stirred by tidal motion. They are young, bright, their light still sharp. They do not know the galaxies that birthed them, but they carry the pattern, and you realize this is how the universe remembers, not in words, not in images, but in transformation. Every star, every orbit, every black hole is memory made motion, and galaxies, they don't just move, they merge, they continue, they become. You rest in that becoming. No fear, no tension, just the knowledge that even great changes can unfold gently, and sometimes, when galaxies meet, they do not erase each other. They make something new. You drift now toward the darkest place in any galaxy, not because it is empty, but because it is full. Full beyond measure. Full beyond light. This is a supermassive black hole, the heart of a galaxy, the place where gravity folds so tightly that even photons cannot escape. It does not shine. It does not speak, but it remembers. You hover near the core of the newly formed galaxy, the quiet child of the Milky Way and Andromeda's long-awaited meeting. Where once there were two supermassive black holes, now there is one, larger, heavier, still. Its event horizon is vast, and beyond it lies silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of return. Everything that crosses that edge is kept. Not destroyed, not forgotten, just kept. It is a kind of perfect memory, a one-way record of everything that fell in. You float near the accretion disk, a glowing halo of gas spiraling inward. It radiates with fierce energy, the last protest of matter before crossing the final threshold. The black hole itself remains invisible, but its gravity shapes everything around it. This is the center of motion, the heart of forgetting, and the engine of memory. You follow a star as it loops near the edge. It is not falling in, just dancing with the void. Its orbit is fast, tight, elongated by centuries of gravitational pull. The black hole has shaped this motion. It has bent time. And the star remembers that. Every time it swings around, you drift farther, tracing the paths of stars near the core. Some spin like tops, others wobble. Some seem frozen in strange loops, captured by old collisions. All of them respond to the mass hidden in darkness. They do not need to see it to remember it. You wonder now what happens when two black holes merge. The answer is both quiet and thunderous. They orbit each other first, like dancers circling a still-growing fire. The space between them shrinks, slowly, each orbit tighter than the last, and when they finally join, they ripple, not in light, but in gravity. You float within the echo of that ripple now, a gravitational wave that passed through this part of space long ago. It bent everything, gently. Space itself trembled. Time flexed. The memory of that merger lingers not in sight, but in shape. Somewhere. Someone may have felt it. Maybe not here. Maybe far away where scientists build detectors to listen to space-time. They do not look for light. They listen for whispers in the fabric of everything. And sometimes they hear at the merging of black holes, the memory of ancient gravity, the story told in silence. You drift back toward the black hole now, and you feel its presence, not as fear, not as emptiness, as weight, as stillness, as remembering. Black holes carry the signatures of what has fallen in mass, momentum, even spin. Every particle that crosses the event horizon changes the black hole story, makes it heavier, makes it rotate, shapes its future. And even though we cannot see what's inside, we know that nothing escapes, not even the past. Some scientists still wonder, do black holes really lose information, or does it live on, encoded in the event horizon, trapped in subtle ripples? No one knows for sure. But even in the unknowing, there is wonder. You float through that wonder now, resting in the idea that maybe black holes are not destroyers. Maybe they are keepers, silent historians of everything too dense to return. You drift away from the core, now, back through the stars that swirl more slowly, more freely. The memory of the merger spreads outward. The stars remember, the dust remembers, the orbiting globular clusters remember, and in the centre the black hole remains, still, heavy, quiet, but not forgetful. Galaxies move, galaxies merge, galaxies change, but the black hole, it carries the weight of all that came before, and tonight, as you drift farther into calm, you carry some of that weight too. Not as burden, as awareness, as quiet depth, because even in darkness, some things are never lost. You drift now into quieter places less crowded than galactic centres, less vast than spiralling arms. Here, among the stars, you find islands of memory. These are globular clusters, spheres of ancient stars huddled close together, orbiting the halos of galaxies like satellites that never left. Some clusters are as old as the universe itself. They shine with the soft golden light stars that have burned steadily for 10 or 12 billion years, growing old in one another's company. You float through one now, passing between suns as bright and steady as candle flames. They do not spin wildly. They do not pulse with youth. They glow. They hum. They remember. Each globular cluster is a kind of fossil and untouched remnant of the early universe, formed during a time when galaxies were still assembling, when the cosmos was younger, hotter, more chaotic. But these clusters found their way into orbits, and they stayed. They do not sit in the galactic disk. They hover far above and below, like sentinels in a slow orbit around the galaxy's core, and their presence tells you something important. The galaxy did not begin as one thing. It was built from pieces, from clouds that collapsed, from stars that joined hands, from smaller galaxies absorbed over time, and these globular clusters, some were always here, others came from elsewhere. You float into a halo of such clusters around a distant galaxy, and you begin to notice patterns. Some move in harmony with the galaxy's rotation, others swing in wide, tilted loops as if they came from another story entirely, and they did. Some clusters are captured memories, star groups stolen from smaller galaxies that passed too close and were torn apart. The clusters remained intact, now orbiting their new host, carrying with them a different chemistry, a different origin, a different rhythm. Astronomers can tell them apart by their motion, by their metallicity, the mix of elements in their stars, by how they drift just slightly off the galaxy's pulse. You float through one such foreign cluster now. Its stars are slightly bluer, its orbits slightly more eccentric, and its presence tells you this galaxy has met others. It has taken pieces of them and held on. You drift farther, tracing the orbits of multiple clusters around a massive elliptical galaxy. Some of them form loops, others arcs, and still others, strange figure eights. Their motions are not random, they are history in flight. You realize that in some ways, globular clusters are like punctuation. They mark where galaxies have paused, where galaxies have merged, where galaxies have accepted visitors. They do not form easily in the present day. Most are ancient. Relics. They are not factories of stars anymore. They are libraries, and the stars inside them, they orbit close to one another. Some so tightly that they swap mass. Some so old that they are now white dwarfs, cool, quiet embers. You pass one such pair, two stars locked in orbit, circling each other faster than your heart beats. One slowly drawing matter from the other, glowing in X-rays. Their dance is ancient, and it will last until one fades away completely. Even in death, stars remember each other. You drift outward again, passing dozens more clusters. In the Milky Way, there are over 150 known globular clusters. In giant galaxies, there may be thousands. Each one a tight bundle of light, and each one whispers I was here. I saw what came before, and I orbit still. You think of your own memories now, how they orbit you, how some are close, warm, and bright. Others drift farther, half remembered, tinted with time, but all of them remain. You are made of memory. So is the galaxy, so are its stars, and so, too, are these clusters glowing islands that carry the echo of where they were born, even as they circle something new. You pause beside one last cluster, far on the edge of a galaxy's halo. Its stars shimmer faintly in the dark. No city light here, no traffic of spiral arms, just silence. And you understand, even the most distant part of a galaxy remembers. Even its furthest orbit carries story. Even the quietest cluster hums with past motion. So float with them now. Let them pass gently beside you. And listen. They have been circling for longer than the Earth has turned, and they are not finished. Not yet. You drift now through a space not marked by distance, but by belonging. Here. Stars scatter across the galaxy like seeds on the wind, but each one, no matter where it wanders, began somewhere. You begin to wonder, do stars remember where they were born? You float beside one now, warm and bright, circling the outer edge of a spiral arm. Its light is steady, its motion sure. It orbits the galactic centre with millions of others. But this star is far from where it started. Its birthplace was likely in a dense molecular cloud, a dark, dusty cocoon hidden deep within a spiral arm. There, gravity slowly pulled gas together until fusion sparked and light began. But that nursery is long gone. The cloud has drifted, dispersed. Other stars born beside it may have gone in different directions, some toward the centre, some out, some gone completely. So how could a star remember you drift farther into the thick band of the Milky Way's disk, where stars of all ages orbit in layers like threads of silk? You begin to see that stars don't stay where they're born. The spiral arms are not rigid. They move, but slowly patterns, not permanent features. Stars born in their embrace are carried onward. They pass in and out of arms like dancers looping in and out of spotlight. This is called radial migration, a quiet process where stars slowly drift away from their birthplaces, not in sudden leaps, but over billions of years, nudged by spiral density waves and gravitational tugs. You pass a population of stars that form together, now spread across a wide swathe of the galaxy. They orbit at different speeds, different distances from the centre, but chemically they still carry the same signature, the same blend of elements, like siblings wearing matching coats stitched by the same cosmic hand. Scientists can trace this using chemical tagging. They look at a star's light and decode the elements within it: iron, carbon, magnesium, oxygen, and when they find stars that share the same chemical fingerprint, they know those stars were born in the same place, even if they now shine on opposite sides of the sky. The stars don't remember consciously, but their atoms do. Their makeup is a map. You drift near a stellar stream now, a long ribbon of stars pulled from a disrupted cluster or dwarf galaxy. These stars once moved together, tightly bound, but gravity stretched them out. Still, they hold to the same path, the same curve. Their shared motion is a form of memory. Even when they are no longer near each other, their shared orbit tells the tale. You begin to see the galaxy differently now, not as a place of isolated stars, but as a river of families. Some stay close, others drift far, but each one carries something of its origin. You pass by our sun, spinning slowly in its gentle orbit. It, too, was born in a cluster likely surrounded by hundreds or thousands of sibling stars. But those siblings are gone now, dispersed, lost among the countless lights. Still, scientists believe they may one day find them, not by sight, but by chemistry, because even after 6 billion years, the sun carries the trace of its origins, and so do its long-lost siblings. You drift toward a star far from the galactic plane. It shines quietly, moving on a strange path far above the disk, looping back toward the centre. It was likely ejected long ago, perhaps by an encounter with another star or a brush with the central black hole. It is a runaway star, but even it, alone and wandering, carries the mark of where it came from, its speed, its spin, its elemental fingerprint. It remembers, even if no one asks it to. You float again through the arms of the galaxy, past stars of every colour, red dwarfs burning slowly, blue giants burning fast. Each of them holds the signature of its origin, and each of them is on a journey. Some will live for billions of years, circling many times around the centre. Others will burn out in mere millions, exploding in supernovae, scattering their ashes into clouds that may one day form new stars, and so the memory deepens. Because even when a star dies, its remnants enrich the galaxy. Its elements drift into new clouds, join new clusters, give birth to new suns. In this way, stars not only remember, they pass memory on. You drift near one such cloud now, rich in oxygen, carbon, and iron. You know these elements were forged in stars long gone. You breathe them in, metaphorically, and realize you are made of stardust that remembers other galaxies, other lifetimes, other beginnings. So do stars remember where they were born, not with thought, but with motion, with chemistry, with the way they carry their story forward, even as they drift. You, too, are moving. You, too, are shaped by places you no longer recall. But your being carries the imprint. So float with that star. Let it pass you, slow and soft. It may have travelled half the galaxy to arrive here, and it has not forgotten. You drift now through the invisible stretch between galaxies, a place too vast for light to fill completely, too sparse for stars to shine, and yet alive with motion. Not the kind you can see with your eyes, but the kind you feel in the pull. This is where galaxies speak to one another without words, where gravity becomes conversation, where the fabric of space tugs and shifts like the surface of an unseen sea. These are tidal interactions, the gravitational tides between galaxies, felt long before they touch and remembered long after they part. You float near two galaxies still far apart in distance, but already changing one another. Their shapes stretch, their gas bends, their outer stars wobble in orbits just slightly off, and no one has touched anything. This is what gravity does. It reaches through emptiness and carves meaning into motion. You hover beside one of the galaxies, watching as its disk begins to warp. The far edge is pulled ever so slightly upward, like a sheet being lifted at one corner. The inner stars don't seem to notice yet, but the gas does. The dust does. The outermost clusters of stars begin to trace new curves, pulled by the whisper of mass in the dark. It is like watching water react to a passing ship, even before the hull appears. Some scientists describe these forces as tidal arms, extended filaments of stars and gas drawn out of galaxies like threads. You follow one such thread now, a plume of young stars gleaming like scattered pearls. These stars didn't drift here randomly. They were pulled, not broken away. Invited. They move in arcs. Their velocity doesn't quite match the rest of the galaxy anymore. They stretch into space, drawn toward the passing partner. Some may fall back. Others may never return. But all of them are in motion, and in that motion, they remember. You drift farther into the space between the galaxies now, and you begin to feel a kind of tension. Not tension as in fear, but tension like music, like the drawn bow of a violin string. Each galaxy is tuning itself, adjusting, responding to the presence of the other. They may not merge, they may never collide, but this meeting has changed them. You wonder how many other galaxies have brushed past one another, just once, never to meet again, yet forever altered in structure, in rotation, in the placement of their stars, because not all interactions end in merger. Some are just encounters, but even brief encounters leave ripples. You pass a galaxy that carries such a ripple, a single long tail stretching into space, like a comet that has forgotten its nucleus. That tail is the memory. It doesn't curve back. It doesn't close into a loop. It just points outward, like a finger reaching for something no longer there. You follow the trail for light years until it fades into the dark, and you realize that this, too, is a kind of relationship. One galaxy shaped the other simply by existing, by passing near, by sharing gravity for a time. You return now to the galaxies themselves. Their motion has shifted. One spins slightly faster than it used to. The other now rotates along a tilted plane. These are long-term changes, permanent, inherited. They have left fingerprints on one another, not in brightness, not in colour, but in the rhythm of their stars. You pause beside a small satellite galaxy now, orbiting its larger host. Its shape is distorted, stretched by gravitational tides. It is being stripped slowly, not violently but steadily. Stars and gas are drawn outward, falling into arcs. Some spiral inward, others drift between galaxies, becoming part of the intergalactic medium. The satellite is losing mass, but it's giving something too, enriching its host, reshaping the halo, leaving memory behind. And even when the satellite fades, the trail of stars will remain. A silent path, a soft reminder, a gravitational signature etched into the galaxy's outskirts. You drift into the dark between these galaxies, now a place where light is scarce, but gravity is still present. You feel the pull from both directions. Neither galaxy dominates. You are in the middle, in the tide. You let it wash over you. This space is not empty. It is filled with the stretch and bend of matter and motion, of forces that are never quite still. Here, stars can be trapped in orbits that last forever. Here, entire clouds of gas can be pulled across millions of light years, changing the chemistry of the galaxies that receive them. Some scientists believe galaxies grow by these means: tidal feeding, gravitational sipping. They gain not just through mergers, but through shared fields, quiet exchanges, slow drift, and over billions of years, those tiny tugs reshape everything. You begin to understand that gravity does not need violence to leave an impact. It only needs time. It needs patience. It needs openness. Even galaxies that only glance at one another leave changed. And that change can last longer than stars. You pass one last arc of stars, like a necklace unfastened in space. Each one follows the next in a long, slow sweep around the larger galaxy. They do not know where they began, but they know where they're going, and the path they follow remembers for them. So do tidal forces leave memory. They do, not in sound, not in story, but in shape, in drift, in curves that never quite unwind. And tonight, as you drift gently in this intergalactic sea, remember you too are shaped by tides, not just ocean tides, but emotional ones, gravitational ones, moments of closeness that pass through you and leave something changed. Even a near miss can move you. Even a gentle pull can leave a lasting trail. You drift now beyond individual galaxies, beyond tails and clusters and orbits. You rise into something grander, more intricate, more ancient than any single shape the cosmic web. It stretches before you like a living map of the universe, a vast, interwoven structure of dark matter and galaxies, of filaments and voids, of memory made visible through scale. You're not looking at stars anymore. You're looking at structure itself, the skeleton of space. At first glance, it looks delicate, threads of light thin, barely there bridges connecting islands of brightness. But you float closer, and you see that each glowing node is a galaxy cluster. Not one galaxy, but hundreds, thousands, and the threads that bind them. They are not empty. They are filled with galaxies. Galaxies that have formed, moved, collided, and drifted along these filaments following the unseen scaffolding built by dark matter in the earliest moments of the universe. You glide along one of these filaments now. It stretches across hundreds of millions of light years, and yet it curves gently, calmly, like the arm of a dancer you can't quite see, leading galaxies in a performance written in gravity. This is not randomness. This is a memory. The web formed from tiny fluctuations in the very beginning, from whispers in the cosmic microwave background, the soft static left over from the Big Bang. Those whispers became density. Density became mass. Mass drew more matter, and over billions of years. That matter formed the filaments you see now. The cosmic web is not static. It breathes. It grows. It remembers where gravity has been. You move along a filament and notice how galaxies cluster more tightly at certain points, nodes where multiple strands meet. These intersections are where the most dramatic events take place. Giant galaxy clusters grow here. Mergers happen more often. gas flows inward along the web, feeding black holes and igniting starbursts. These nodes are the memory keepers of cosmic drama, the bridges between them. Meanwhile, are quieter. Galaxies travelling these threads often move slowly, gradually influenced by gravity's pull toward the nearest node. Some meet along the way, some pass in the night, some fall together in long, graceful spirals. Even voids remember. You drift into one now, a massive empty region, surrounded by filaments but nearly devoid of galaxies. It seems silent, but it is not forgotten. Its emptiness is part of the story. Matter once passed through here, drawn away by the weight of nearby filaments. The void is a negative imprint, a hollow left by the motion of everything else. You float on. Farther along the web, you see galaxies that seem twisted, warped, deformed, not by collision, but by journey. These are travellers that followed the cosmic currents and were stretched by tidal forces, bent by passing clusters, shaped by the web's subtle hand. Some have tails that point back the way they came, streams of stars left behind, like breadcrumbs marking their path through deep time. You begin to feel the web not as a place, but as a memory structure, a great galactic mind. Each thread holds stories, each node a chapter, each motion a sentence carried forward. Some scientists say the cosmic web resembles neural networks, not just in structure, but in function. A system that holds information, that shapes behavior, that grows with time. You drift through a filament and imagine it as a thought the universe once had and never let go. You pass two galaxies drawn along the same thread, not yet met, but on converging paths. You feel the anticipation, the inevitability. They are part of the same web. Their meeting is not by chance. It is written in the thread itself, and after they merge, their stars will continue along the path. The web does not stop for mergers, it flows through them. You think now about the galaxies that have already passed through this region long gone, but their influence lingers. Their mass altered the filament, their motion changed the gravity, even their absence reshaped what came next. Nothing is truly forgotten. Even when a galaxy disappears, the curve it once created remains, and you float in that curve. You are shaped by it, because your galaxy, the Milky Way, lives on one of these filaments. It spins within the Laniakea supercluster, a great river of galaxies flowing toward an even greater node. We are not isolated. We're not alone. We are part of the pattern. We are the memory of the motion that brought us here. So you rest now, suspended in the structure. You let the cosmic web cradle you. You feel it hold every galaxy, every cluster, every dark thread and glowing intersection. And you know this is where the universe remembers. Not in pages, not in minds, but in shape, in distance. In the long, winding lines that carry stars from one place to another and never forget the path they took. You drift now through space that no longer feels still, not because it moves faster, but because you're beginning to hear something beneath it all, a rhythm, a language, a long and winding conversation between galaxies, not spoken in sound, but in gravity, not exchanged in words, but in motion, not brief, but eternal. This is the universe speaking to itself. You float between two distant galaxies connected by nothing visible, and yet you know they've spoken, perhaps in a brush of halos, perhaps in a tail of stars drawn like a ribbon behind one of them, perhaps in a wave of gas, compressed and collapsed. That started the birth of stars in a corner of a disk long after the other had passed. The conversation doesn't need to be loud, it only needs to change something, and it always does. You drift through the local group now, the quiet family of galaxies that includes our own Milky Way. There's Andromeda, grand and spiraled, our future partner in merger. There's Triangulum, smaller and shy, moving between us both. There are dwarf galaxies circling like satellites, like punctuation marks in a paragraph that hasn't finished forming. They're all in conversation. Their orbits, their motions, their quiet responses to each other's gravity are phrases. Their collisions, rare and slow, are emphatic pauses. Even their silences mean something. This group will merge, eventually. The galaxies may not be speaking as you would understand, but the gravitational signals are constant. A nudge, a pull, a shift. That is how they listen. You pass through a long arc of stars, torn from a galaxy that brushed too near another, long ago. The trail is ancient, stretched thin. The stars here are orphans, but they still follow the same path, looping through space as if being read by something larger. A sentence left half-finished, a phrase suspended in light. You drift now through a cluster hundreds of galaxies wrapped together in a common halo of dark matter. They circle one another slowly, not randomly, but as if sharing a stage. Their motions are complex. Orbits loop, paths curve. Some galaxies fall inward and are torn apart, but the group holds together. They're in a dialogue of mass and motion. Gas flows between them. Some galaxies are stripped bare, their outer stars taken by the cluster's shared gravity. Others grow fat, fed by the remains of their companions. It's not chaos, it's exchange. One loses, another gains. A kind of balance is kept. Even their black holes speak absorbing gas, releasing jets of energy that stretch light years through space. These jets don't destroy, they signal, they shape how stars form, how gas cools, how matter gathers. The entire cluster listens. You drift near one such black hole now, its jets faint in the radio, invisible to your eye, but vast enough to shape the cluster around it. They're like messages sent through silence warnings, perhaps, or declarations. And somewhere, another galaxy responds. You begin to understand that space is not quiet at all. It hums, it pulses with messages passed across gravity wells, through halos of dark matter, via light stretched and curved and red-shifted. It's just that these messages take billions of years to complete. You pass between galaxies that have never met, but whose paths are slowly curving toward one another. A meeting may take place 5 billion years from now, but even now, their motions respond to the gentle tug of what is to come. The conversation began long before they touched, and it will continue long after. You feel now that this universe is not made of things. It is made of relationships, of pull and pause, of closeness and distance, of events so slow that we miss them, and yet they shape everything. The stars in your body, the oxygen, the iron, the carbon came from these conversations, from galaxies colliding, triggering starbursts, which led to supernovae, which scattered heavy elements into space, which coalesced into new stars, new planets, new possibilities. You're a product of dialogue. You're a continuation of gravitational poetry. You drift now above the whole, above filaments and voids, above clusters and spirals, and you see it for what it is. Not a collection of islands, but a web of stories, ongoing, connected, endless. Some scientists still wonder how much information is passed in these meetings, how much of a galaxy's shape is inherited from its parents, how much of its spin comes from its earliest partners, how many starbursts were the result of a quiet exchange. We may never know, but the motion remembers, and that's enough. So you rest here, at the edge of this thought. You let the galaxies pass like ideas, each curving slightly toward one another, each saying something just by existing. The universe is not shouting, it's whispering all the time. And if you drift long enough, and still enough, you might hear it too. You float now in a space that looks empty. No stars, no bright cores, just faint, dark whispers in the fabric of space. But even here, in what seems like silence, you discover something constant, a presence, a ripple, a trace, because every galaxy, no matter how small, no matter how long gone, leaves behind something of itself. And those traces are not always bright. Sometimes they are distortions, warps, cold signatures embedded in the dance of stars and the drift of gas. You drift beside a large spiral galaxy now, elegant, composed, balanced, but something in its outer arms catches your attention. They're bent, just slightly, curving more than expected. One side flares. The other dips. This is not a flaw. This is a footprint. Some time ago, maybe 1 billion years, maybe more, a smaller galaxy passed by. It didn't stay. It didn't merge. But it came close enough to pull at the stars, to tilt the disk, to leave a message written in shape. The stars didn't forget. They carried the trace forward in their orbits. And now, long after the visitor has moved on, the bend remains. You glide around the outer edge, where gas has pooled in strange ways, lopsided, uneven, pushed by tidal forces from a body that is no longer visible. But the gas remembers the pressure, and it still flows accordingly. These are gravitational fossils. You drift away from this galaxy, and into the larger structure that holds it, its dark matter halo. Though invisible, it too carries memory. Its shape is not perfectly round. It's stretched, pulled by past encounters, shaped by mergers, elongated by proximity to other masses. Scientists call this dark matter substructure. The ghosts of galaxies that came too close, or were eaten entirely, or fell inward and dissolved. Their stars may be gone, but their mass, dark and silent, remains, tugging at the orbits of everything nearby. Even light curves around it. You pass a region where the background of space is distorted, just slightly. A soft lensing effect. The light from more distant galaxies bends as it moves through the warped space left behind by something that is no longer there. You're looking at a shadow of gravity, and even shadows remember. You drift into intergalactic space far from any bright core. Here, you find a trail of stars so faint they're almost impossible to see. They don't orbit anything. They move as if remembering where they once belonged. These are stellar streams, the result of satellite galaxies pulled apart over time, and they stretch for hundreds of thousands of light years, thin, fragile strands of starlight left behind as proof that something passed through here once. They are not mistakes, they are sentences, cosmic grammar, fragments of past conversations. You hover beside one of these stars. It's old, quiet. Its path is curved, gently, by the remnant mass of the galaxy it once circled, but now it drifts, unanchored, holding that motion like a note held in a symphony that ended too soon, and you realize there are more stars like this than anyone once thought. Whole populations. Some galaxies are missing their edges. Their outskirts have been stolen, torn away in meetings that happened eons ago, and yet the pieces remain, just far from home. You drift now toward a galaxy cluster, and from above, you see a haze around it, faint, diffuse light that doesn't belong to any one galaxy. This is intra-cluster light, the result of stars torn from their hosts during collisions and mergers, left to wander the space between galaxies. They no longer have a home, but they are not gone. They form a halo of history, a dim glow of forgotten motion, a reminder that the space between galaxies is not empty. It's full of echoes. You pass through this haze and think of all the lives those stars might have once known, systems with planets, orbiting suns that circled a galactic heart, now scattered, dispersed, but not erased, because the stars still shine, and the motion still holds. You return now to your own galaxy, the Milky Way, and you look for traces. You see the ripples in the disk, the warps at the edge, the streams curling through the halo, each one a memory, each one a signature, each one saying, "I was here. I passed this way." You begin to feel something gentle settle in your chest, because even though galaxies are immense, ancient, and seemingly indifferent, they carry memory in their very bones. They hold it in motion, in tilt, in starlight, and you're made of those stars. Your atoms were once flung from suns that spun in galaxies long gone. You carry the trace, not just of Earth, but of everything. Of every galaxy that has merged, every cluster that has formed, every tail of light that drifted into the void. You're not separate from these motions. You're made of them, and somewhere, out there, the universe remembers you too, not by name, but by presence, by curve, by light, and nothing that leaves a trace is ever truly forgotten. You drift now into the final quiet, the kind of quiet that holds everything. Not silence from emptiness, but silence from fullness. The kind that hums like the inside of a conch shell, carrying a sound that was made long ago and is still circling. Around you, galaxies turn, some spiral, some shimmer as smooth ellipses, some dance in pairs, others wander alone, and each one, no matter how bright or faint, carries memory, not written in books, not stored in archives, but held in curves, in motion, in light. You float above a spiral arm curling slowly in starlight, and it tells a story without speaking. Somewhere, sometime, another galaxy passed nearby. It pulled gently, and now this arm is wider. This cluster is offset. This ring of gas flares differently than it once did. It's not damage, it's history, it's memory preserved in spin. The universe does not archive, it arranges, it sculpts, it carries forward. You watch a stream of stars pulled from a satellite galaxy, now looping through the outer halo of a larger one. These stars no longer orbit their original core, but they still trace its path. They stretch like a thread from a conversation long over, still humming in the fabric of space. And what about the galaxies that merge? You see them too. You hover above a great elliptical galaxy, round and radiant, glowing softly. It was once 2, maybe 3, maybe more. You can't tell by looking at its core it has settled, but the halo remembers, the shells, the arc of outer stars, the slight lopsidedness in its motion. They are all whispers from before. They are all lines left unfinished. You drift through a star cluster now, one that came from far away. Its orbit is tilted, long, not in harmony with the disk it circles. It doesn't belong here, and yet it's been here for billions of years. A traveller adopted, a stranger made kin, a memory made visible in motion. Galaxies do not forget. You float through the cosmic web, watching filaments connect galaxy clusters like neurons. This too is memory not of individual encounters, but of formation itself. The early universe laid out a map, and galaxies followed it. Still follow it, still carry its structure in their placement. Even the voids remember. They were shaped by absence, by expansion, by matter flowing elsewhere. A quiet record. You return now to the Milky Way, to its disk, its halo, its quiet halo of satellite companions, and you feel it remembers too, in the warp of its arms, in the ancient stars that drift above its centre, in the streams that loop and swirl around it like old thoughts, and you drifting here. You are part of this memory. Your body holds atoms born in other galaxies, supernovae from long ago, hydrogen made minutes after the Big Bang. You breathe with the rhythm of motion that galaxies taught the stars. You sleep with the curve of orbits in your blood. You were not born separate from this. You were born from it. You are what the universe remembers, what it has shaped and carried and brought forward. And as you drift now into rest, you no longer ask whether galaxies remember each other. You know, because you've felt it, in every orbit, in every ripple, in every quiet pull between things that once touched and never let go. Wind down 138 words. So now, dear sleepy traveller, let the stars dim, let the galaxies soften, let your thoughts dissolve into the quiet curve of space. You've been everywhere tonight, between spirals, among shells, through trails of stars and across the cosmic web. You've floated in the arms of giants that move too slowly to notice. You've listened to the hush between galaxies and felt the pull that never stops. And now it's time to rest. Let your breath move like gravity, soft, invisible, patient. Let your limbs grow weightless like stars adrift in a halo of memory. Feel your heart beat with the rhythm of old orbits, steady, enduring, slow. There is no rush. There is only drift. No galaxy forgets where it came from. No orbit truly ends. Even the faintest star carries the motion of what once was, and so do you. Tonight, you're not simply falling asleep. You're falling into memory, into structure, into belonging. You're not alone in the dark. You are surrounded by echoes. Galaxies that once passed each other still shape one another. They still spin with the momentum of those early meetings. They still hold hands, invisibly, across space. Some never touched directly, some only passed nearby, but their shapes were changed forever, just like you. Every thought that visited you today, every feeling that brushed your heart, each one leaves a trace. You carry them not as burden, but as pattern, and tomorrow you will wake changed, softened, shifted, remembered, just like galaxies do. The stars above you have done this before. Over and over, they've merged, wandered, danced, passed, and remembered, and they will again. And so will you. Breathe in now gently, deeply. Let the air enter your lungs like starlight reaching a telescope, long delayed, but finally arrived. Breathe out like a galaxy exhaling a trail of stars. Feel the dark around you not as emptiness, but as embrace. The cosmos is not cold tonight. It is holding you the way galaxies hold motion, the way orbits hold time, the way light holds distance, and when you sleep, the universe keeps spinning, but you are finally still, cradled by memory, carried by gravity, wrapped in the shape of everything that came before. Galaxies remember each other. So does space. So does time. And so, dear listener, do you. You remember in breath. You remember in dreams. And the universe remembers through you. Sleep now, softly, eternally. The stars will wait. The galaxies will keep moving. And you are part of it all.